Oh, hi. Um, my name is Robert LaCour, and I'm giving you a presentation on the Hoofer Volunteer. Does everyone have one of these? Karen, do you have one?
I got one.
You got one, Mark? All right. Hoofers runs on volunteers. Volunteers are what Hoofers are all about. Very few of us get paid for the things we do. And at the top of the handout, there is the little quote, which is adapted from John W. Gardner, that kind of emphasizes this. I'll read it for the sake of our viewing audience. Nothing is more vital to the renewal of the Hoofer organization than the system by which able people are nurtured and moved into positions where they can make their contribution. This implies a concern for the growth of each individual that extends from their earliest club experiences throughout their involvement, commitment, and contribution to their club or clubs. I think that pretty well sums things up right there about the importance of the volunteer. What we have to keep in mind is that when we get a new member into our club, the member basically knows absolutely nothing about what's going on. They're totally in the dark. It's like a freshman coming into college, whether they actually are freshmen or if they're simply graduates or older undergraduates that are new to Hoofers. So we have to keep this in mind, that they're inexperienced and that they don't know what's expected of them, or what the opportunities are in the club. So you have to go up to them and you have to make it easier for them to assimilate themselves into the club. And not just to get a participating member out of them, but make them into someone who can contribute, getting them to be on a committee, eventually chair a committee, be an officer, all the sorts of things that go into making a club run and run smoothly. So what you want to do, you want to start out, you have this fresh recruit, his mind is like yogurt, it's real impressionable. And the first thing you want to do is you want to sell your program, whether it's your club in general, Hoofers in general, or a specific activity or interest that your club is trying to get going. You can see that I subtitled this Informing and Exciting the Potential Volunteer. Well, that says it all. That's what you want to do. One is, of course, to provide a description of the program's goals. Well, if it's your club, then you want to have a nice rundown of some sort on what the club does, when it meets, what it's all about, this sort of thing. And it's really important when you're selling a program, I mean, you're selling a product. It's just like toothpaste or yogurt or anything else. You want to make it snappy and lively, not just a sheet like this is, which is black and white print. You want some color and some graphics and things like this. Emphasize the aesthetic appeal of the materials that you give your members and new members, to get them excited, because even though we are Hoofers and we're all students, a slick, glossy, professional type production or handout or newsletter or something really says something about the club, and that it's with it, and that the member can get fired up about it, if you follow me on that sort of reasoning. Also, let the volunteer know what he or she can get out of the experience. If they're going to be on a committee or chair a committee, there's things like gaining experience that they can later apply to jobs, or just saying in job interviews, yes, that I have this experience. Things like that. That can be the very technical sort of things, the office area type, filling out forms and all this sort of thing, through probably what are the more important aspects of it all, with dealing with your peers and other people, the interpersonal relationships, building self-confidence, self-esteem, and making new friends. That's important. And just also having fun, because having fun is what Hoofers is about. Did you follow that? All right, I hope so. If you have any questions or anything, or would like to make a comment, feel free. Ian Rich described that the Hoofer approach to supervision is best described as laissez-faire. And I thought Isaac Newton summed that up pretty good. And it seems that Hoofers get most things done by this method, simply letting things run themselves, and if a problem crops up, seeing if you can do something about it, referring to the advisor, referring to the president, or something like this. You don't want to do anything if it's not fun. And fun is a great incentive and a great motivator. It's probably the biggest motivator that I can think of. And there are many ways that you can keep things fun when you're dealing with a committee, or even something like Hoofer Council, which is an executive sort of function. Maintain the social element. All of us here are friends, or most of us, I suppose, I hope, are friends. And it wouldn't do any good for me to be bitchy with Rich and Rich to be bitchy with Chris and all this sort of thing. No one would have any fun then. Something we can see in the middle of the table here is an example of our next point: provide incentives for meeting attendance, such as refreshments. We have Sprite and potato chips. That's a pretty good incentive. Also, planned activities afterwards. we have discussed things like going for a cruise on the Maria after a council meeting, and hitting the stables and things like that as extra incentives. Things like that always help. You can always say, well, we're going to meet as a committee, and then we're going to hit the Brat House afterwards. That's always an incentive, because after the fact, after the work, you can go out and have a little fun. Every once in a while, occasionally, maybe meet someplace else, someplace just to break up the monotony of the same old union walls, which can be a drag on everybody. So locational interludes. And if you work hard at first, then the play that comes after is going to be a lot more meaningful. All right? Next page. The organization itself can also adversely affect a program. Things like simply just too much red tape to wade through, too many people to be answerable to. Certainly you have to have control over things, but you have to allow some freedom as well. Some freedom for creativity, some freedom for making decisions on their own, things like this. If you have any questions, feel free to talk to me, because we did really super condense this, and we also Hooferized it, which hopefully made it a little bit more palatable. Food and material gains are motivators, of course, but we feel we should de-emphasize those, because intrinsically, I think you get a better quality of motivation if you can assign such a value to motivation, if it's for personal reasons. I get motivated by having something that is going to give me much more self-satisfaction, rather than something that is simply going to give me Sprite and chips.
They're getting their self-satisfaction, or they're not volunteering.
Exactly.
And that's the whole key to the Hoofer organization, is knowing that they volunteer, they're going to get something out of it unless you make it a negative experience. They're all getting something different. There's no way to generalize on what everybody's getting out of it.
It takes effort to be a volunteer, of course, but the benefits, both tangible and intangible, are well worth it. Well, that's sweet. Thank you.